This is Harley Sachs, the author of Threads of the Covenant, copyright the year 2002, and the product of Audiobook Intellectual Properties, the idea development company of 113 West Houghton Avenue in Houghton, Michigan.
The Conversion of Richard Goldman. When Richard Goldman was hired as an ABD, all but dissertation, assistant professor on a one-year contract to teach philosophy at Copper Country Community College, he was glad enough to have a job at all. In a society whose philosophy is consumerism and the profit motive, there is little room for philosophers who earn little and consume accordingly. Graduate school had left him in debt, and he arrived in Red Jacket, Michigan, in an oil-burning $200 Chevy that lasted long enough for him to move his things into a small upstairs apartment in what had been an old mine captain's estate. Within a week of his arrival, he could call himself professor at last, Goldman's car blew a gasket, lost what oil was left, and seized its engine. Looking at his dead car like a painting of a cowboy who has lost his horse in the desert, Richard Goldman had the distinct feeling of someone marooned. He was washed up on the shores of a remote Lake Superior peninsula, caught in an educational backwater, and subsisting on a poorly paid temporary appointment at an unknown school. But it was a job, after all. The dead car could be replaced. For a change, there was a paycheck, and if he could only finish his dissertation in the time left over after teaching a 15-hour, 3-new preparation load, he might escape to someplace better, a school with a philosophy department. At CCCC, he was the only philosopher and had little hope of professional development or conversation. His arrival was noticed by the natives. Goldman had not washed up on a desert island like Robinson Crusoe. He was more like Friday, who Crusoe had barely discovered before trying to convert him. Friday had been made a slave and a Christian all in one swoop. Goldman, while no slave, was bound by CCCC, and the Jews of Red Jacket knew that Professor Goldman was Jewish. How they found out was a mystery. Was there a friend in the dean's office? Had Dr. Taggart, his department head, passed the word to Mr. Weissman, operator of the sporting goods store and president of the minuscule congregation? Had the affable Mr. Rabin, the jewelry store owner, wormed Goldman's religious preference out of him? Or had Jack Jervis, the mechanic at Jerry's Shell Station, who pronounced the crippled Chevy a hopeless case and asked innumerable but deliberate questions, tipped everybody off? Whatever the means, the Red Jacket Jews knew there was a potential congregant in town. It made Richard Goldman very uncomfortable. He knew he was the only Jewish faculty member at CCCC, and he suspected that he was hired to fill some obscure quota like affirmative action so CCCC could continue to get government grants and cuts. But Goldman, who had been raised in a city with a large Jewish community, was not very religious. His studies in philosophy made him ambivalent. There were too many sides to every question. Raised in a congregation where there were plenty of Jews, he had never experienced much urgency about being Jewish. Without being missed, he could take it or leave it go to services or not go. He could eat at a kosher restaurant or at McDonald's. But in Red Jacket there was no McDonald's, no kosher restaurant, no kosher food of any kind for that matter, except for the few items at the grocery store bearing the code marks P, K, or U that some Jews looked for. Coming
Sample complete. Ready to continue?